this lesson, we're going to review the offset formula. The offset formula is a unique formula in the sense that it's not often used by a lot of people. The offset formula is used to return the range that is a specified number of rows or columns from a reference cell or range. And I find it to be particularly helpful in situations where you've got a specific template that you need to populate and it has a certain order in which it needs to be filled out, and the raw data is produced from a source system in a backwards fashion or not in the fashion that you need it to be in the template that you're preparing. We'll go through an example like that. But just to give you a high level example, let's say you've got a source system that produces profit and loss data and it shows months for January through December from left to right. If you've got a template that you need to prepare and that template shows the data from December through January from left to right, not January through December, then you can use the offset function very easily to transpose that data accurately into your template without a lot of work. That's using the offset formula. Let's take a look at the formula explanation before we jump into an example. So as you can see in our formula, there's a few different syntax here. There's the reference, and that's the starting point, and that's called the reference cell. There's the rows, and that's the number of rows you want to offset below or above. So if you've got the reference cell set at F10, you can imagine that if you want to return a result above or below row 10, then you could put a 1 or a -1. A 1 would mean that it would offset below it, and a -1 would offset above it to 9. Similarly, in the example of F10, F would be the column, and you could offset that column to the left or right, putting in a positive integer within the column syntax within the formula offsets things to the right, and a negative value would offset it to the left, i.e. a -1 would offset cell F10 to E10. There's also a couple optional syntax for height and width. Height is the height in rows of the returned reference, and width is the width in columns of the returned reference. Let's look at an example. As you can see, the offset formula is equals offset. Then we put in the reference, the rows, columns, height, and width. So in our example, we have a list of grades of students below, and the goal is to find the math grade for John and the sum of John's grades for all subjects. So in the first case, let's try to find the math grade for John. If I were to just simply look at the table, I can look at column F where math is contained, and I can see John had a grade of 65. But what if there's a ton of data? Let's take a look at how we can use the offset formula to find that. So in cell E38, I can offset cell C27, which is the first cell of the table, and I could have picked any cell, but I want to use that cell as my reference cell, C27. And I'm going to offset it 3 times to the right, so 3 columns to the right would be math, and 4 down would be John. So 4 rows down would be John, and if I press enter, I can see it returns a result of 65. So we know that the offset function is working properly there. How about John's total marks? So for John's total marks, we can use a sum formula with a nested offset contained within it. So I'm going to use a sum, and then I'm going to offset cell C27, and then I'm going to put in an offset for 4 rows because I want to look up row 31, which is 4 rows below the student header. And then for columns, I'm going to offset 1 column so that it returns a result for English. And we're going to put in something unique here. We're going to use the height and width optional fields as part of the formula syntax. So currently we're referencing row 4 underneath the reference cell. So there's student, and then Henry would be 1, Samuel 2, Alex 3, John 4. We're looking up the 4th offset row underneath student. We can see that as represented in the 4 for the rows. For the height of that row, we only want to look up John as the row itself. For the columns, we wanted to reference English, as the first column to be referenced, i.e. his grade of 81 within English, but we also want to carry that over 5 times. So we want to carry that over from English to biology, math, chemistry, and physics. So that's a total of 5 subjects in 5 columns. So we put in a 5 for width. So that's how we can use a sum and a nested offset within a sum to calculate the sum of John's grades for each of these subjects. And if we press enter, we can see it's 398. Let's take a look at another example. In our second example here, the offset function is a convenient way to look up data within a table which has dates and are in a contradictory order, as I previously mentioned. Let's say you have that template you need to prepare, and the template needs to be populated in the opposite fashion from which you have exported it from your general ledger system. In rows 46 through 52, let's assume we have the P&L for HBC Inc., and the earliest date appears in the left column, and the more recent date appears in the far right column, i.e. column L. So it starts with January, it ends at September. Let's assume we need this in reverse chronological order. So the way in which we can do this is by using the offset formula. Let's take a look at cell D70 and figure out how we can do that. Well, first of all, if you look at row 69, you can see that it starts with September 30th, 2019 as being the first month that we need to populate within the template. Column L under row 69 has January 2019. So this is indeed in reverse chronological order from the original source data. In cell D70, we're going to use the offset formula to get the data in the correct format that we needed. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a reference cell. So I'm going to put in cell C46 as my reference cell. And that's the first cell of the reference table. The next thing that I'm going to do is I need to put in a row reference. Well, for subscription revenue, as we can see in cell B47, it's actually the first row that is being offset. Usage revenue is the second, professional services is the third, total revenue is the fourth, cost of services is the fifth, and gross margin is the sixth. For the columns, you can see that the first column is January, the second column in the source data is February, and the last column is September at column 9. So those are the orders of offset for rows and columns. And that's what we're going to be referencing in our template down below, starting in row 69. So let's open it back up the cell D70. So for D70, we're referencing the first reference cell, i.e. cell C46. And then for the rows, we want to offset for subscription revenue just one time. So what I'm going to do is I just want to use a count formula. And in this case, I'm just going to use the count A formula. And what this does is it's going to count the number of items that I'm referencing. And in this case, I'm just referencing one item, i.e. subscription revenue. So it's going to put a 1 into that formula. So it's going to reference the first row, which is subscription revenue. And then I'm going to reference the column for September based on what I count in cells C45 through L45. And if we count the number of cells in that range, it's actually 10 items. But I only want it to be 9 items because 9 is the offset. So I'm going to subtract 1. So I'm going to put minus D45. And I have a reference up here in row 45 to indicate the offset numbers. So what this formula is now doing is it's putting in a 1 for the row reference for the offset, and it's putting in a 9, i.e. 10 minus 1, for the column offset. And what that's going to do, it's going to return subscription revenue, and it's going to return the subscription revenue for September, i.e. $136,857. I can drag that formula down and across because I didn't lock a couple of these cells here. As you can see in the row reference, I didn't lock the 71 and the 70 within cell D70. As you can see, I put $C to lock column C, but I didn't lock the 70. So when I drag that formula down, it now counts 2 items, C70 through C71. For professional services, it's going to count 3 items, cell C70 through C72. What's that going to do? Well, if it counts 3 items here, then it's going to take into consideration 3 items to offset from the reference cell of C46. 3 items down is professional services, so that's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted it to do. Similarly, I need to offset the column to be able to return the 9th result for September within the reference data table, and I can achieve that using the same formula as before. I'm doing a count of the number of items in the reference range, C45 through L45, and subtracting 1. If I were to move over to August, then I'm actually going to have to subtract 2, and hence why I didn't lock the column letter at the last part of this formula. As you can see, it's subtracting 2 for August, it's subtracting 3 for July, and so on. So for July, it'll be 10 items, i.e. the count of column, so that's 1, cell D45, which is the second item in this range, and so on. The total number of items in the range for cells C45 through L45 is 10 items. If it counts those items, not sums them, but counts them, it'll be 10 minus, and then we're subtracting F45, which is 3, and that'll give us 7. And if it does a reference of 7, you can see that 7 is equal to July as an offset because it's the 7th item over from the reference cell, P&L. 1 would be January, and 7 would be July. So if we go down to July for professional services revenue, we can see it's 75,919, and that matches up in our template that we've populated. So as you can see, the offset formula is pretty flexible. You just need to be able to structure your data properly in order to ensure that you can just copy the offset formula that you wrote and drag it throughout the template. In this case, I had to do a little bit of manipulation in order to just put in some embedded count A formulas as opposed to just putting in a row reference or a column reference number. Had I done that, I wouldn't have been able to copy this formula and drag it throughout. So I needed to do a little bit of manipulation. I mapped it out properly by getting a good understanding of where things resided within the source data table by putting the row number and column number beside items in and above the table. And that helped me to understand how far things were away from the reference cell, i.e. cell C46. So I hope this helps. It certainly has helped me several times in the past when I'm trying to prepare templates and need to get data in the correct format. And I had all the data, but it was not in the exact fashion or chronological order that I needed to be initially. Hey guys, thanks for watching this lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe from you. And if you want to learn more about Microsoft Excel, check out these videos above. And don't forget to check out our website, commercecurve.com, where we have lots of in-depth finance and accounting courses available with full training workbooks. All of our courses come with complete workbooks of lessons, examples, pre-built financial models, and training video. Hope to see you there.